What's going on, guys? Welcome to the David F. Haas podcast. I'm in the studio alone today, but I'm going to talk about how to never become triggered ever again. And so when I started, I did a post recently on TikTok, and it got a lot more attention than most of my other posts do, because I don't have a ton of followers on TikTok. But, most of my posts get 300 views. And this one got 20,000 views. And the title of it was how to never get triggered ever again. And it created all of these responses. And then what happened is it ended up triggering the fuck out of me. So here I am teaching how to never be triggered, and then I got triggered. So it was just an indication to me of the work that needs to be done. So the first way we begin to remove triggers, and the word trigger is getting overused a lot now. And so people are having emotional responses to triggers. And so all the trigger is some sort of elevated state of emotion. So you could be triggered in a good way, and you could be triggered in a bad way. But if you're being triggered and it is creating a negative response in you that is not serving you, then what we want to do is we want to begin to identify, well, why are we being triggered? So the first thing we can do to start to step out of triggers is to recognize this recontextualization about triggers, which is that all triggers are gifts. And they are a gift from the universe, from God, from whatever your higher power of understanding is, that is showing you what it is you are still holding on to, or what state of consciousness you might be stuck at. And so if we really begin to see triggers as gifts, and that's what when I got triggered by all the people commenting on that TikTok video, I recognized, I'm like, oh, this is actually a good thing. And what it showed me was that I'm still holding on to how other people's opinions affect me, and that's about my own insecurities, my own self-doubt. And I then began to see those triggers as gifts, and I essentially said thank you to all of the people that were commenting negatively or positively, because they were showing me something that I still needed to let go of. And when I did the work to get a little bit deeper into it, when I did the work, I recognized that the thing that I was still holding on to was that I am still in this people-pleasing mode where I want every single person to like me. And then eventually what I ended up responding to one person was like, hey, listen, this teaching is just from my own personal experience. If it doesn't serve you, just move on. I'm not here to convince anybody that I am right or wrong. It's if you don't find power or truth in what it is that I'm teaching, then I'm not going to spend my time trying to convince you. That doesn't mean I'm going to close the door to hearing your opinion out, because maybe my viewpoint on triggers, for example, is not fully right. But from doing this work for the last 18 years, I feel like I've developed a really good understanding of why people get triggered and how to remove these triggers from their life. So the second thing that we need to do, and this is where the video got a lot of pushback, was what I was saying in the video is, when we are triggered by somebody, we're just using somebody because we can be triggered by events, we can be triggered by the government. It doesn't have to be an individual person, but in this video I was talking about individual people. And so if we're triggered by, let's say, for example, our mothers, what we have to move into is this deep place of understanding about why they are doing the thing that they are doing that is creating this emotional response in us. And when we really fully see and we really truly empathize, meaning we feel what it is that they once felt, then we can move to this place of understanding. When we move to this place of understanding, we then just see it for exactly what it is. And then we can remove our own trigger, because we can see that whatever it is that they're doing is not an attack on us. It is just how they have learned to protect themselves from experiencing any type of emotional pain in their life. So let me give you a better example of this. So I was talking with my wife actually about this whole scenario, and she gets really triggered by her father, right? And her father's this kind of over the top kind of guy, great guy, love him to death. But this creates this huge emotional response in her. And so what I had to do is I had to get her to empathize with why her father was the way he is. And she she immediately said, I know why he's like, based on the way he grew up, and he had, very European kind of parents, and nothing was ever good enough. And so that developed this personality trait of his to kind of go over the top, let's say. And that over the topness is what triggers her. But she's like, yeah, I get it. So I understand that, he could never do any right with his parents. And so that created this. But I said, no, you're talking about that from your adult mind. So when things happen to us as a kid, the emotional pain, the trauma that we go through is so intense that our mind or our ego immediately goes to work to make sure that we don't feel that anymore. And the protection that it creates is the personality, or is our sense of I today. Okay? And so when we can see that from an adult point of view, it's easy to say, yeah, he's like this because of this. But what you're missing is to really fully understand the pain that kid experienced. So then I related it to our daughter. And I said, imagine our daughter came home from school, right? And she showed us the work that she did. And I took the paper and crumpled it up and threw it in the garbage and said, you suck. You should color in the lines better. It's like, that would devastate her. And so when she was able to see that, she was able to understand, and I don't know if this is exactly what her father went through, but like similar to this type of scenario, was like nothing was ever good enough. And so imagine doing that to a 4-year-old, because we have a 4-year-old. Then she was able to see how painful and how traumatic that actually was. And then she began to empathize with her father, which gave her a deeper understanding of why he is the way he is. And it's no longer this thing he's doing to her. It's a thing he's doing to protect himself. And when you see that and you really, truly, fully understand that, then you can have acceptance. So anytime we don't have acceptance is because we lack understanding. We lack understanding and empathy for why somebody is the way they are. And if you can't see it, it's because you haven't been able to go deep enough to understand the person they are. And you might be able to say, yes, I understand why he's doing that, but you haven't been able to go back and feel what that person felt. And when you begin to feel with somebody, it moves you into a place of like unconditional love for them. And when you're in the place of unconditional love, there is no more trigger, because you see everybody for exactly where they're at. And this is what got the pushback. But this is the piece of the puzzle that people are missing when it comes to removing triggers, is we have been unable to put ourselves in their shoes, what they went through as a kid, not as our adult selves, because our adult selves have the benefit of hindsight. Of course, we can look back and be like, it was just kids being kids, or whatever it was that we went through. But if you go back and ask, the 9-year-old or the 7-year-old when they got bullied, how it was that they felt, they were scared shitless. They thought they were going to die, right? As an adult, it was like, it's just kids being kids, right? But when you're in, for example, let's use this example of bullying. When you're in being bullied, it might be so emotionally traumatizing that it will result in physical symptoms, meaning you'll feel upset stomach, and this will result in like avoidance and not going to school, which may turn into a personality of like shy and meek, doesn't want to rock the boat too much, because they feel if they do rock the boat, it'll draw too much attention and it'll lead into bullying. Like, this is what we really need to tune into with respect to like this deeper level of understanding. And so when we can get there, then we can see everybody for exactly how they are, and we no longer take it personal. So if you've ever read the book, The 4 Agreements, it's like one of the agreements is don't take things personally. And this is what they're talking about. It's like people aren't doing things to us. They're doing things because they feel like that's what they need to do to protect themselves. And here's the other thing. It's all unconscious. They're completely unaware that they're doing it. It's just a personality that they've developed over the course of time. And it's all about this protection from pain. So it created all these responses. The third thing that we need to do, the first thing is we recontextualize triggers as gifts. The second thing is we move to a deep, deep place of understanding. We connect with why they're protecting themselves and what from. We connect to when they experience that pain, the age that they're at when they experience that pain, and then we'll be able to empathize. And the third reason is we have to understand, well, what button is being pushed, right? What button in us is mom or dad or, spouse or whatever that may be. And the reason I use those examples is because the people that trigger us most are usually the people that are closest to us, right? Because they know exactly what buttons to push. So the third way to remove triggers is to understand what buttons people are pushing in us. And we can begin to identify what button people are pushing in us. Then we can begin to go back and understand where we experienced that pain for the first times in our lives. And we can allow ourselves to sit in that pain, which is the letting go process. And then that way, we will no longer have that button in us. So let me give you an example. So the button that was being pushed by these people kind of like coming at me in these comments was my button of self-doubt, right? My button of like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not good enough. All of those buttons. And those buttons were created out of, because I've done so much work here, out of like my childhood of like not being like the smartest kid in the school. I was actually really stupid as a kid. And so like I had like a assisted learner like back in my day. And like the way that they did that back then was it would be like the middle of the class. I can't remember what they called them then, but it was like someone that helped me learn better would come into my class. His name was Mr. Mazzaro, God rest his soul, Mr. Mazzaro. And so he would come into my class and he would say, Dave, it's time for your extra help or whatever it was. And it was like this insanely embarrassing, time when all of your peers are seeing you as the dumb kid who has to go and get extra help. So that dumb kid, even though I've done a lot of work with like allowing that dumb kid to feel the embarrassment that goes along with, being pulled out of your class, that goes along with not doing well on tests. And I've allowed him to feel that pain. There is still this little bit of self-doubt that exists in me that still needs to be worked on, obviously, that allowed these people with their comments to push that button of self-doubt in me. And my immediate response was to respond with anger, right? Because anger is my protection. So I wanted to comment back like, yeah, fuck you, basically, right? But I allowed myself to resist that because I knew that was just an emotional defense out of something deeper. And so then when I began to look at it, it was like, oh, that self-doubt is still in me. But just with the awareness that they were pushing the button of self-doubt, I was immediately able to tune into the work that I've done with this self-doubt and with this feeling of shame that went along with being the stupid kid in school. And I was able to let it go in that instant. And that's where the comment came out of that I commented finally back to this one person that was like just going back and forth with me. That came out to like, listen, this is just my experience. You can essentially take it or leave it. And once I did that, I came to this awareness that it's like, I am not going to allow a few negative people on the internet to prevent me, because that's what it wanted me to do. It wanted me to it wanted me to stop posting. It wanted me to not continue to put my message out there. But I just had to step into the courage of, I'm not going to allow this trigger, this button that I still need to work on and to deactivate. I'm not going to allow a few people to shut me down so I stop spreading my message. And I have to move into this place where I just don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about what anybody else says. And so I've always had this teaching where I was like, I want to move to this place where I am unfuckwithable, meaning there's nothing out there, there's no one out there that will ever fuck with me. They won't be able to elicit any response because all of the buttons that they're going to try and push, I've done the work on them. I've let the pain associated with that button go, and that button is essentially deactivated. And this is how we move to this place of being completely unfuckwithable, completely untriggered. Does that mean we never get triggered ever again? No, of course not, because this work is continuous, right? But every time that we get triggered, we can say thank you. We can begin to empathize, and then we can look within and say, what is it that I'm still holding on to that needs to be let go of so that I can break free from this one for good? So that's the process. That's how we remove all triggers. And I thought what would be really cool would be for me to go through some of these comments on the podcast, which is something I've never done before, and just read them, because I think there's a lesson in every single comment from this video. And you can go to my TikTok and see it's the only video that has 22,000 likes, so it'll be easy to find. And you can see the comments, and I went back and forth with some people, then I just eventually just stopped. So this guy says, I'm sick of being the bigger man. So again, this is about the post is about having acceptance for all. And this guy says, I'm sick of being the bigger man. And essentially what I hear in that is the apathy, is the victim. It's like, why do I always have to be the one that steps up, right? And so this is someone that is trapped in blaming the world. It's because of mom, it's because of dad, it's because of whatever it may be that I am all fucked up. And why do I have to be the person to continue to step up? It's like, it's because you are the only person that can change. We have zero control over anybody out there. So you can spend your life blaming them for why your life sucks, or you can get to work and do the healing that's necessary so that you no longer get triggered by these people out there, right? So that is essentially someone that's still trapped in apathy, and whether they I just liked the comment whether they want to see that or not is their kind of cross to bear, right? Their thing to go through. Okay, this is actually a positive one. This person says, I've been doing this for several years, man, and I'm still triggered. And so this is something actually that I hear a lot, is that someone says, I've been trying to let go for several years. I've been feeling the feeling. And I would actually just, invite them to read the book, Letting Go, because the truth of the matter is that if you truly are able to connect fully to whatever it is that you're holding on to, and you can really stay with that emotion will run its course in a matter of minutes, and you'll become free of it for good. So if you're not free of it from good, that means that you haven't actually fully tuned in, fully allowed that energy to run its course. It would be like, I always like to use the example of like someone that's afraid of heights. It's like, if you're afraid of heights, your whole entire life has been about feeling fearful of heights. So yes, you have been trying to do it your whole entire life, but all it is that you're feeling the fear, okay? The actual process of becoming free of that fear is to go and stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon and stay on the edge of the Grand Canyon until the fear no longer has any power over you. That would be the process of letting go. And this is what we're missing when it comes to like grief. People like, for example, grief, which would be like, I've been feeling the pain of loss from the loss of a loved one for 30 years. And I agree that you have been tuning into the pain, and it's been being expressed and vented and coming out in tears. But have you ever allowed yourself to fully go there, to feel the pain completely without any justifications, rationalizations, condemnations, or, for the fact of the matter, any thoughts whatsoever about the emotion? Because a feeling is just a feeling that we hold in the body. Grief is a feeling we can tune into in our body, in our physical body. And if we can just stay in that pain, the first thing we're going to recognize is that it's not that bad after we let it run its course. And the more we begin to do that, the more we are less fearful of staying in that emotion, the more willing and courageous we are to go to that emotion. And then once we do that, we are free. And so there will be no longer any more trying to let go of it, right? There will be no longer any trying to have acceptance for people, because that button will be removed. There will be no more protection needed because we are no longer fearful of standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, right? So the real answer to that question is, the reason that you're still stuck is because you've been unable to let go of the resistance to fully feeling the feeling. And for that reason, it remains in your life. And now the second part of that is that this person's saying, well, I've been trying to accept them for who they are my whole entire life, but it's still not working. But, well, obviously you haven't fully accepted them yet because you're still being triggered by them, right? And so what's missing there is you're failing to really connect to their pain, not their pain as an adult, right? Their pain that they went through as a kid, and put yourself in their shoes as a 3 or 4-year-old kid where they had a mother or father that didn't love them, or whatever that may be, okay? So this is like about learning how to fully connect with people. This is the other one. It's like, what was this one comment? This one girl was just like went berserk on this, and it was like just going back and forth with me, right? But She says, She says, I'm pissed off by your teachings on accepting abuse. What's wrong with you? Teaching acceptance of abuse in church. I don't know where she's getting church. False teaching. Okay. So this is, I think, like where a lot of spiritual students get stuck. So I'm grateful for her to bring this up, is that we mistake acceptance for tolerance. And so we can have complete and utter acceptance for somebody, but that doesn't mean we continue to allow them to hurt us, right? And so I think this is better like described with an example. So for example, if you can accept a lion for eating a zebra, right? You can sit back and at a distance watch that lion eat a zebra and just be like, yeah, sucks for that zebra, but the lion is just being a lion, and that's just what a lion does. So we accept that, like, this is the nature, it's brutal. But if that lion comes like trying to come into our house, we of course are not just going to say, oh yes, we accept you, lion, come into our house and eat us. Of course we're not going to do that. We have to create boundaries, and we have to protect ourselves. So acceptance is not tolerance, right? We have to use our discernment when we have acceptance for other people. So let's apply that to like this word narcissist is getting thrown around a ton lately. And it's like, I might have to do an entire podcast on narcissism, but essentially we are all narcissists. And so we're all only consumed by looking out for ourselves. Of course, there are extreme narcissists, but when we begin to blame narcissists for why we are the way we are, it's just a refusal to let go of what it is that we have to let go of. So anyways, let's just say you have a narcissistic mother, right? And that narcissistic tendencies continue to hurt you in some way. I don't know what it would be, in manipulation, in lies, or whatever. Acceptance is understanding why they are the way they are and seeing it, but it doesn't mean that we continue to allow that behavior to happen. We might then call them out with courage, right? And not fear the response that might come from them by calling them out, because we have let go of whatever button it is that she's been able to push in us. And we have also begun to empathize of why she became a narcissist in the first place. So acceptance does not mean tolerance, right? In fact, it's like acceptance is a form of courage. It's a form of understanding. It's a form of vulnerability that allows us to see where they're at. And then we can, with courage, call them out on their bullshit, but not out of a place to try and change who they are or trying to be right. It's from a place of just saying, hey, this is my boundary, right? And there's no emotional connection to setting that boundary. It's just like, I see you out there, lion, eating the zebra, but here's my fence. Don't cross that fence, right? And it's like, that's the boundary that we need to put up with people that have these tendencies. So acceptance isn't tolerance. There was one other one in here that I thought was like worth doing. Oh, this one's like, pull your head out of your ass and become a conservative, and you'll never be triggered again. I was like, okay. Right. So it's like, well, obviously this guy's triggered by this post, so this is why he posted this. But it's like, I actually am conservative. I would consider myself conservative. I would say middle, but I'm leaning more with like the truth and free speech. So if you want to put a label on me, you would call me conservative. But this is just an example of like, let's just keep repressing us. And another guy said, just take the word trigger out of your vocabulary, and then it's solved. Remove the word trigger from your vocabulary to start. And then the other one is like, or you could just be a man. It's like actually super entertaining to like just look at this stuff, because you see what's going on, and like those three comments are all in like the masculine energy of like, just shove it down. Like, just don't fucking deal with it, and keep, just keep moving forward, keep looking to the future, never look back. And the problem with that, and, guys like Andrew Tate, who I actually like, I agree with a lot of stuff Andrew Tate says, but, one of the things that he says is like, therapy is like one of the worst things you can possibly do for yourself. It's like continuing to focus on your past and, dig up all of that old shit. It's like, let's just move forward. And it's like, yeah, I get that mentality. But what I also understand is that, is that we took on unconscious programs from the ages of 0 to 12, meaning we just became who we became without knowing that we were becoming that, right? And so I think a part of growth and moving forward, no, I don't think, I know that from my own personal experience, a part of growth and moving forward is to identify why we became that way. For example, I was a people pleaser all out of the fear of being in a physical confrontation. And you'd have to listen to other podcasts for me to reveal that whole story. But a necessary part of me breaking free from that people-pleasing behavior was dealing with that fear of physical confrontation, which was tied to claustrophobia. And I could do all of the jiu-jitsu and I could do all of the stuff, but it was still not resolving that in me. And it wasn't until that I tuned into the fear, the deep, deep fear that was connected to all this, and I learned how to let that fear go for good, that I broke free from my people-pleasing behavior. So I do believe that there is this balance and of, yes, moving forward, but also creating an understanding of why we are the way we are. And comments like "be a man," like that is like what the problem with society is that it's in our vulnerability that we have the most courage. It actually is the weakest thing possible to do, to basically just shove down all of our inadequacies and continue to move forward unconsciously, without ever looking at why we are the way we are, so that we can become better. And so it requires an insane amount of courage. It actually is one of the most manly things you can do, to kind of look back at all of the shit that you went through and have the courage to actually sit in it and face it, instead of just doing what the whole entire world has been doing, which is shoving it down, pushing it down, and continuing to allow these unconscious programs to rule our lives. So anyways, that was kind of like a rant, but I think it's really interesting, and I'm glad that I went through this. I'm glad that I went through this whole entire process. I'm so happy for the triggers, because now, moving forward, I'm going to be posting on social media from a completely different place now. It's no longer going to be to appease the masses. Either you get something from my message or you don't. And I have no desire whatsoever to try and prove that I'm right. Like, done. I don't want to change your mind. Either you get something from what I put out there or you don't. It's like, I literally don't care, right? It's like, I don't care. And like, the people that are the most successful in the world are the people that have this like unfuckwithable type of mentality. It's like nothing can penetrate them. And as I move more and more towards that, I recognize that the success and the growth that's going to come from that is going to be huge. So stick around and follow the journey with me. So anyways, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up there. Quick little recap: recontextualize triggers. See them as gifts. Second is move to a place of deep, deep empathy with why the person is doing that. And the third is identify what button people are pushing in you, and learn how to let that emotion go that's tied to that button for good, which will essentially deactivate the button. And if you do that, people will no longer piss you off. Not that it's never going to happen, but every single time it does, it's an opportunity to grow, to let go, and to move forward. That's it. Thanks for taking the time to listen. See you again next week.